Welcome into the Metropolitan Report. I'm Skip Berkmeyer, and this is Skip on a Stick, where Jay and I pick St. Louis legends, if you will, to talk to about the game of golf. And I'm going to get to my guests in here in just a second, but I want to make sure that we remember the great folks down at Dalhousie, Bill Morrow, Little Jack, the pro, to the whole kit and caboodle down there is a national golf club in Southeast Missouri. I never would have thought it, and they have done it and pulled it off. Cord Dombrowski treats everyone very, very well. If you haven't played it, contact your pro. They can see if they can get you on. If you're interested in any kind of membership, please reach out to Dalhousie and Bill Morrow. They're great supporters of not only ours, but of amateur golf. Dalhousie, the national club here in the state of Missouri. I also want you to remember the Metropolitan Amateur Golf Association. The Metro is, it's the foremost golf association that we have in our area. Besides running great amateur events and a professional tournament, they do a lot of other things for the game of golf. We just had the Metropolitan Amateur, the 31st playing. Lots of things you can do, lots of rounds to be had the rest of this year. If you have a handicap need, if there's any question about rulings, the Metropolitan Amateur Golf Association and Kurt Rowe is your person to talk to. So make sure you support the Metropolitan Amateur Golf Association. Now to my guest, my friend, and some are easier than others. We've had great guests before, but I know this one will be really good. He's my friend, Dave Estes. Dave, good to see your face, my friend.
Hey, Skip, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We start these, kind of what I do is to try to get us where we started in the game of golf and then kind of go forward to where you are now, because your career, amateur golf, isn't about one tournament. It's not about 1 week. It's not about 1 month. It's about a time. And you've established yourself as one of the premier players in our area, and it started somewhere. So you got to tell me, because I remember we've talked about it before. I think I remember there might have been sand greens when you started back a long time ago in this game of golf.
Yes. I called it country golf. Country golf's a little bit different. Even though that it is country, so the golf courses that I started on were not necessarily well manicured. We kind of had a Heinz 57 of grasses in the fairways, no irrigation systems, and sand greens. Down in southern Missouri, southeast Missouri, this was not uncommon. There's a lot of 9-hole golf courses that hadn't made the transition from sand to grass, and you would drag your line. You would make one drag through from one side of the green to the other with something. The drag was about 50 pounds, and you had a piece of string, and so you would hit on this string. You would pick up the string that was tied to the stick. You'd go over and measure your golf ball with that string. You would pull it over to the area that has been dragged to putt. If you were really good with the drag, you could get yourself a good right to left putt almost every time.
But that's awesome. But that's how you got started in the game, and then you end up becoming a professional. How did you go from that to then you became a professional? And I want to get to the couples golf as well, because that's all part of your history of getting to be a good amateur player.
Well, I took a short. I gave up my amateur status. I took a short detour, and it didn't work out. I should never have done that. It was due to one of the local pros that I worked for, and I'm not going to use any names on this, but he was a trip in itself. So I was able to use him as an excuse to get out of the business. At that time, I was able to take an interview. I was going to interview for a job at McDonnell Douglas, and it was going to be in the recreational department. And to tell you how golf opened some doors for me, before my interview, I ended up playing a round of golf with the vice president of McDonnell Douglas, Bill Ross. He said, "Son, you don't want to get in. There's no money in recreational department. You want to get into facilities." Well, this country bumpkin don't even know what facilities is. So, but I did get hired, and I through on the job training and some other training, it worked out. It worked out for a 35-year career.
Which is part of the story. And I've always admired you. It's always easy. I mean, I always feel like I had it. Jay and I always talk about being country club brats going up in the game of golf. You had to work your way there. And the fact that you had a 35-year career, I think, is a huge part of your story of worked your butt off, but then also worked your butt off in golf. And so I'm a huge admirer of that. And it's not easy. And we can get into that in a minute. But I do want to get into couples golf, because I know there for a while. If you know Dave, you know his wife Sandy, and Sandy and Dave, for many years, while he got his amateur status back, didn't play amateur golf. He went around weekends around the state of Missouri and played couples golf. And I'm curious. I would like you to talk about that, if you could, to the audience, because I think it's a unique part of your story.
Well, I mean, obviously Sandy played golf, and she was a pretty good lady player. In fact, when we finally did join Norwood, I'm going to digress just a second.
Sure.
We joined Norwood because of your mom and people like Barbara Boykman, people that she could get her play with to so she could have a game on the weekends. And now back when I was 25, from the time I was 25 to the time I was 35, we owned our own golf cart. We built a 2.5-car garage to house this 2 cars and 1 golf cart and a trailer. And every Friday, when we got off of work, we came home, beat it home, and we hooked up. And down southeast Missouri we went, and not only southeast Missouri, but some in Arkansas, some in Tennessee, some in Kentucky. So we this occupied our golf. This gave us our golf fix, and so we would play both Saturday, Sunday. We would then drive home a lot of times late Sunday night, and then go to work on Monday. Just a side thing, the Hovises, we that did the same thing. Scotty Hovis's mom and dad, and we actually we had flights, and B and C played in the mornings, and Championship and A played in the afternoon. So they were kind of BC, and while they played, we watched Scotty Hovis for them. And Scotty actually chased down quite a few drinks for Sandy and I. But we were just all a little family, kind of a caravan going from tournament to tournament. And that was that 10 years. And we were quite successful during that 10 years. We won probably over 100 tournaments.
Dominant.
Sandy and I, but competition wasn't that strong.
Well, but it was, but that got you back into golf. I mean, you had a job, you did all that, you were a pro, now you're not, and it kind of led you into Norwood, as you just said earlier, as far as becoming a member there. And then you started playing competitive amateur golf all the time. And I think that you did a little bit of a switch. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I want to mention a person that actually turned me. He actually talked to Sandy and me, and it was a long time golf, successful amateur, Craig Snurbush, which died way too early. He died at 45 from a blood disease, but he came to Sandy and said, Dave's wasting some talent. Now, we didn't know how much talent, but certainly if I had talent, it was being wasted, he thought. And he was the one that helped make the decision to quit driving up and down highways, dragging a golf cart around, and go into some more serious competition. So I have a deep appreciation, and of course he was a good friend of mine.
Great guy, fantastic guy, great player.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the late 80s, right? That was about in the late 80s, Dave? That was about in the late 80s? Correct?
Yeah. It was about 87, 88. Yeah.
And then I think in 1989, you find yourself in the finals of the state am, if I recall. And really you started climbing the ranks as far as playing. And I got to think, getting to the final in 1989, I know it didn't end like you wanted, but it had to prove to you that you made the right decision. This is something you can do really, really at a high level.
It kind of surprised me. In 88, I tried to qualify for my first amateur, and Craig Schnurbush and I qualified together. So we went out to West Virginia into Sam Snead's area.
Yep.
And we played out that way. And then that happened in 89. So gradually I got a little bit more familiar with some of these tournaments that you guys, well, you weren't.
That was a little before me.
Yeah, quite as good back then, but still, that introduced me to the state tournaments and the qualifying for the USGA and Normandy amateur, Ping amateurs. These types of tournaments that are still being played today by some of the top players.
That's right, and you did, and you started really doing well. And I was curious, when did you think? I mean, I told Dave or Jay was asking me what sort of accomplishments would you say? Well, I said, well, to me, he is the player of the year. He's the player of the decade of the 90s in our area as far as amateur golf. I mean, you look at the totality of 90 through 99. You won the player of the year 3 times. You won multiple Metropolitan Championships, finished second even a couple times. I'm curious, what was the turning point for you? I remember in the early 90s, you were playing just great golf. And I also remember about mid 90s that Boeing went on Boeing McDonnell Douglas went on a strike, and you were mowing lawn. I mean, you had to do so much. You were working so hard. You were in good shape. You were walking. I had to think that was your peak, and that was your heyday. Would you agree?
Well, I would. What was the turning point? No doubt. And now that you know a little bit of my background, I didn't probably play the nicest courses growing up, but what growing up in the country gave me was the ability to have my hands on a club, and that in itself is way more important than being a member of a country club and having perfect surrounds to play off of. The game of golf is relatively cheap down there in the country, so they didn't have age limits of when a junior could play. Didn't have the country club rules and regulations. But when we made the decision to join Norwood, I had an appreciation for a well manicured golf, a practice facility second to none, the quality of players that was already a member, and I can't explain. It was the highest point in my life. And every Saturday that I didn't have a tournament and I got up and I knew that I had a place to go to play, it just meant a lot to me.
Oh, I mean, so, I get it. I'm happy you said that, because I think it means a lot to many of us that played in that. I mean, it's hard to describe to people to tell how good it was. I mean, with Don Bliss, Bob Beckman, Scott Thomas, I mean, Denny Moore. You can go through the list of state champions. It was pretty incredible that your pairing could be out of a random draw, out of a hat or a finagled draw, however you want to look at it. would be great. And even the B and the C players, Staples and Magruder, were really good. And it was just so much fun. I mean, for that about 10-year period, for me, who was in the 20s, it was like having a bunch of big brothers to play golf with. And it was unbelievable how great it was to play and learn how to play.
No question about it. Anybody that was a member, well, we had the U.S. Open. You know, you were part of the U.S. Open, and that's what they called our group, was the U.S. Open group. And anybody that could play, or even anybody that thought they could play, could get into that group. But that U.S. Open group included an awful lot of good amateur players.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the mid '90s. I made my first US Am in 1995. You were there. Went to Newport, Rhode Island. I couldn't even. Sandy reminded me yesterday. I couldn't even rent a car. So you were kind of helping me out, getting it around. What I want to tell you is, I mean, if to take it back, I want to set this up because I want Dave to tell the story because I think it's pretty funny. 1995, it was one of the hottest summers of all time here in St. Louis, if you recall. It's the one where they had the ambulance stationed out at Central Keolan for the Metro. And Dave decided to skip it because it was so hot, the only one he ever skipped. And he drove, I think, to Newport, Rhode Island with Sandy to go early for a vacation and get out of the hot weather. So I'm going to let you take it from there, that you go to the range and you got your 7-iron or whatever you're going to hit and you get to hit it. And I'm going to let you take it from there because to know Dave and to know this whole thing of what you're feeling going to a U.S. Amateur, being an older guy, which I am now, it's a little fish out of water. You're really lacking a little confidence, but it puts a little bit of a funny spin on this story. Go right ahead, take it.
Oh, well, okay. Newport, Rhode Island is just a wonderful, beautiful spot. Their temperatures are hovering around 75. You're on the ocean. We just can't wait to get there. Like you said, it was a hot summer. So we loaded up, we went out there, and I can't wait to get to this golf course that's supposed to be the oldest golf course east of the Mississippi, I guess. And of course, we played 2 golf courses. We played the Newport Country Club, and then you'd have to help me with the name.
Well, we made kind of fun of it. It was kind of like "wanna be on top of me." We couldn't ever pronounce it.
Yeah, it was an Indian name that I could never keep straight. But boy, we hauled right to the practice tee, and I got Sandy on the bag, and I grabbed my sand wedge, and I start hitting balls, and the head flies off of this thing. The heat of carrying my clubs around in the trunk had melted the epoxy, and I hear this sound, and it falls right between Noah Begay and Danny Yates. Danny Yates is a Walker Cupper, member of that Atlanta club, East Lakes, and of course we know who Noah Begay is. He's one of Tiger's good friends, and played with him in college. I got to go down and retrieve it, and that's a bit embarrassing because a lot of times I didn't have a lot of self-confidence or even think that, maybe I shouldn't be there competing against the Noah Begays and the Danny Yates. So I sheepishly go down and pick up my head on my sand wedge and apologize for him and go back. Didn't say much. Go back to hitting golf balls.
Well, I bring it up. The reason I bring that up is it is a funny story, but the fact is, and you qualify again in 1996 at Pumpkin Ridge when Tiger won his third. If you remember all that, not only do you qualify, you make it to match play, which is a big deal. And what you did, and you played Michael Capone. I remember because I remember talking about it with you, that he hit the ball forever. He had his Wake Forest bag, but it was a great lesson, which you not only had for yourself, but it passed to me. You need to play the golfer. You don't want to play the bag and what that name is on the bag. And I think that was something that you passed to me. And I thought that experience from the one year to the next was interesting to bring up.
Well, I think I think I told you that Michael Capone was hit by me 80 yards off the tee. He was extremely long, and then of course with his golf bag, showing me that he played at one of the fine institutions of golf. It was intimidating. I remember I was one of the first ones on the range, and the range guy came out, and he had a big old pot belly on, and and so he asked Sandy if she was there, if she had a son at the tournament, and said, "Oh no, that guy over there hitting balls is my husband." And I don't know, I must have been 45, 46 at the time, and he said, "Oh, well, it's nice to see that we don't have all of these guys aren't flat bellies that's playing in this." And so, yeah, the whole experience up there. If I'd have beat Capone, he was intimidating, but he was beatable.
Right.
I made some mistakes in that round. I started off intimidated by him and Wake Forest, but I got beat 3-2 and really gave some holes away by poor management. But if I'd have won that match, Tiger's career would have forever changed. He would have come up against the Big Red.
Yeah, that's right.
And who knows what would have happened after that.
That's true. Very, very true. But I think what that did was it carried on. You win the Metropolitan in 1997. You win it in 1998, both at unbelievably tough venues in Fox Run and Old Warson. And you were the class of the field. You were the class of the 90s, as I said, and you practiced and you worked hard. I always said you and I have a similar disease. We have an addictive disease. We can't just hit one golf ball. We want to hit a whole bucket. You can't have one cookie. I want to have the whole dozen. So
that's right.
But that's a good trait when it comes to the game of golf and learning and working hard. And that's what you did. And I think that was a credit to you in those 1997 and 1998 wins at the Metropolitan in the mid-40s. Very successful. Very cool.
Yeah, I have one story I'd like to tell about the Metropolitan at Old Warson.
Sure.
It's Jim Holtgrave and myself, the final twosome, going out. By the way, Jim's been nothing but a pleasure to call him a friend. He's been very good to Sandy and I. He even tried to buy Sandy off, claimed that she was my 15th club.
Sounds like Jim.
Well, it's a typical August, hot August, first week of August day. Really humid. We've been out in the sun battling 18 holes. We're standing on the last fairway. Stevie Holtgrave's got his dad's bag. And I hear Steve Holtgrave tell his dad, and he's a young fellow at this time. He said, "Boy, he sure don't look like much of a golfer." And I hear that. And Jim, I also hear Jim being very kind and said, yeah, well, he is. But I start to look at myself. I got this big floppy hat on. I have sweated through my entire outfit. Anything I had on that's cloth is all sweated through. I noticed Sandy. I look back, and she's about 30 yards back, and she stopped. She's red faced, and she's using her asthma inhaler. This is my caddy, And then I look at Holtgrave, and he's so dapper looking. I mean, he doesn't even have a pair of shorts on. He's got these. He looks like he's walked right out of the clubhouse. He hasn't sweated. the part in his hair is exactly the same as when he started. And I got to thinking, well, maybe Sandy and I aren't exactly your atypical country club players.
That's funny. I'm with you. I get it. Totally get
I mean,
it.
there's,
Hey, I got to ask
there's
you.
only two.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you those 2 wins at Old Warson and at Fox Run, I think, and those Player of the Years. And I mean, you're playing so good. I mean, I have to think back. You have to look back at those 2 very, very fondly. Very, very cool to put your name on that trophy twice. And I just think at those 2 venues, that had to go off your ball. There was no faking it at Old Warson and Fox Run.
Well, you've got your name on there several times, so you know how you feel after those wins.
Oh yeah, I gotta take you to a good story. I want you to do one story for me, Dave. And it's 2003. You and I and Wayne Frederick qualify for the state team championship that they don't have any longer. And the state team championship is you take 3 guys from your state and you go and you count 2 scores. And we went up to Hazeltine. It was just after, if you recall, 9/11. So that's 2001, not 2003, 2001, excuse me. Just after 9/11, about 10 days after. And you and I go up there and we travel up there and we're going to play Hazeltine. And we have the first tee time. I'm setting this up for you. We had the first tee time on the very first day, 7:45, off number 10 at Hazeltine. And if people don't understand fall golf in Minnesota, that sun is low, number 1. And it was right into us. But before we get there, Wayne and I go to the right side of the range. You're on the left side of the range. I don't know how that got all. And all of a sudden, Wayne and I are down there and we're seeing balls come right in front of our face. We're like, what the heck's going on down there? And you come down and go ahead. You take the story. You tell it way better than me.
Oh, I was panicking. My warm up was just awful. I all of a sudden started to shank my irons, and I'm so cold. And the temperature in Minnesota on the first, when we were playing, I think it was the first week of October rather.
Yeah,
it was cold. I was shivering. It was just a terrible warm up session, and I got a lead off on number 10, and I tee it up. The sun's right in my eyes, and I cold top it. I top it off the first, and it doesn't go 30 yards. The rough was really, really long and thick. But we had to make a decision before tee off. We had a lot of rain that fell up there, so the golf carts were going to remain on the paths, or you could take a trolley. That would be a pull cart here in Missouri, or a push cart, but some places call them trolleys. I decide, in my infamous wisdom, that I'm going to take a trolley. So, first of all, I damn near lose my golf ball, not 30 yards off the first fairway. We finally find it. If we were playing the 3-minute rule up there at that time, it would have been a lost ball. After I find it, I hit an iron to the top of the hill. And so, okay, I'm off. All right, well, and then I pull a 9-iron that hits the left edge of this green, and my ball comes to rest on a lily pad. And I'm not sure the town that Hazeltine's in is like Chaska or something. But I'm not sure what this lake is called. But I don't even think about it. I go pontoing around this green with my pull cart or my trolley, and I turn it over, and the bag and the clubs fall off the cart into this lake. And I'm going, I'm saying some bad words. Bad words. I can't believe that I've done this. There's nothing I can do but get the trolley set back up, pick the bag up, dry all my clubs off, wipe down the grips. I get in, I do all this. I get to hit my ball off the lily pads. I'm able to hit it on the green, and I hold a 15-foot bogey putt that you would have thought I won the U.S. Open. I've got the Tiger Woods pump. Meanwhile, my teammates are laughing their asses off at the top of the hill at me.
Yes, 100%. Laughing. I saw the whole thing. It was, if you could have seen it from my point of view, it was fantastic. Knowing he had the shanks, knowing it all, that's the only stuff that can happen. Hey, I'm going to play, just before we go here, we got about a couple minutes left, Dave. I want to play a little word association with you. I'm going to give you a name of a guy, and I'd like you to give me a brief comment, or I'm going to give you a Bobby Godwin.
Bobby is the whole Godwin family is just real gentlemen, people. One heck of a good player. He lost his driver at some point in his career. I think now I'm watching the scores. He got it back. But he accepted that little problem with driving the ball as a pure gentleman.
Yeah. Roger Null.
Roger's just an interesting guy. Way smarter than he would let anybody know. He has been a fixture in St. Louis and in the four Quad Cities. People go through him to hire their superintendents here in St. Louis.
I'm going to give you another name that I think is kind of a blast from the past. I know this guy helped you out with your game at Norwood, Larry Emery.
Larry was a long-time PGA master golf professional. I think that he was the class of the Gateway section for 20 years, and then he decided to go to take on some other interest, I guess. But he meant a lot. He meant a lot to me.
He was really good to you, and he was really good to me. I know that. I'm gonna give you two more here. Ranger Bob Beckman.
Oh, Bob. Well, he just couldn't take one club from the golf cart to his golf ball. He had to take three, and this was a constant thing. It could be the simplest shot out there, but it took three clubs to make the decision. But a tremendous person he is.
What a great talent!
With a good family.
I also remember him playing you in a match at the Old Taylor Cup at Boone Valley, and actually took, if I recall, the wrapping paper off the irons from the box and then put them in his bag right off the get-go and almost won the match. That's Bob for you.
I helped him unwrap a new set of Hogan Apex irons, which I hear he might be still playing.
It could be. He's as talented as
I'm not sure, but he has so much talent. He could hit it with a hockey stick and a hard, harsh turd.
Well, you mentioned Craig Schnurbush already in this deal. I think I'm going to end it with kind of our rival and somebody that also was inspirational to us, Don Bliss.
Don. I played with three players that didn't sweat. Don was one of them. Scotty Thomas was one, and Holgrave was the other. I never could figure that out because I can sweat watching TV. But I think Don was the class of that was ahead of all of us. How about a three-time first-team All-American at Oklahoma State?
That's right.
He has accomplished things that he will never tell you about. Making the cut at the Riviera tournament out, being runner-up in the California State Amateur. and then going on to win 4 times state championships and just so much more. But being a businessman, being a family man, and being a top collegiate player, and went on to win all of his championships. He's in a league all his own.
Well, I agree. Well, I'm going to tell you, this has been great for me. I want to say a couple things. Number one, Dave Estes was the player of the decade in the 1990s in our city, and it was fantastic to watch. I got a front row seat for many, many rounds, and I can tell you,
Thank you.
I would not be the player anywhere near if it wasn't for Dave Estes in my life. He was great to me. He was an unbelievable mentor and somebody, and he didn't have to be at Norwood for me. And it was fun playing golf with him all those years, and I look back at those days fondly. So, Dave, this has been fun for me to run down memory lane with you. You're a great guy and a great friend of mine. So thank you very, very much, buddy. Meant the world.
Thanks for having me, Skip. And it's likewise to you, buddy.
Yeah, you're the best. Thanks, buddy.
You mean a lot to me.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Okay.